today I'm here with one of my old classmates, John. Myself and John served in the Defence Forces, and he's now the digital marketing manager for IT.ie.
That's correct. And thanks very much, Conor. I'm delighted to join you here today. I haven't seen you since our time in Carlow in college and all the stresses that it brought, but hasn't done you too bad. You're looking well, and you're doing very well, and I'm delighted to hear. So please walk away, ask whatever questions you want, and I'm delighted now to just sit here and chat with you about, I suppose, the Defence Forces and 27 years of my life I spent there. So please go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. So you're in for 27 years now. You're out a couple of years, are you?
September 2021 I retired, or the transition, I suppose. It's a strange one when we say retire, because people look at you and go, I'm advanced in age, I'm not quite that old yet. So when people look at you, they go, you're retired, they say, well, I suppose you could say we transitioned to a new stage of my professional life.
Yeah, definitely. And do you miss it now, or
do I miss it? Yes, I do miss it. To the point that I miss the camaraderie of the men and women I served in the Defence Forces. It's a unique relationship you have when you're in the Defence Forces, because when you're doing your recruit training or your NCO training, so you're in kind of residential training where for months at a time you're with all these men and women, and then when you go overseas you're in a high stress environment, so you develop very strong relationships, strong bonds, and there's a very high level of trust. So while I don't miss the organisation in the sense that I'm very happy with my decision to leave, I certainly missed that element of it. I missed that bond that we had with the people I served with.
Yeah, it's very different, I suppose, from like the culture, I suppose, when you're in the Defence Forces to when you leave. It's very different. And so you were there for 27 years. What first prompted you to join the Defence Forces?
Okay, well, I suppose it's a bit cliche, but the whole adventure, and excitement, and travel the world and see new things, and that did excite me. I was in the FCA. I joined when I was 14 or 15. You could get away with that then until you find out. But I remember even being in the FCA and looking at the PDF guys, the Permanent Defence Forces guys, and you say, I want to be them one day, and I really want. You see, you looked up to them. They were, you're looking at them in awe, and this is what you wanted to be. And so the FCA at the time, I think that it's the reserves now, but the FCA at the time was a great, I suppose, initiation into the culture of the Defence Forces. Yeah. The one thing I take back, and I was only thinking about the FCA the other day, and I was only a kid, but I do remember I had a terrible appetite. I didn't like a lot of the food the army cooked, and that didn't necessarily change in 27 years. Although some fantastic cooks,
and then so you initially joined then the permanent. Was that then the main decision of why you decided to join the
It was. I was interested in interesting enough when I was, I suppose, growing up as a teenager. Yeah. There was two things I wanted to be: was either a soldier or a journalist. Two very contrasting things, and I even did a small bit of work in a local paper in Finglas, the Finglas Forum, and did a little bit of journal, and I really enjoyed it. But the opportunity came up to join the Defence Forces. I didn't think I'd get in because I had long hair. Even when I was in the FCA, I used to tie it up under the berry. It was this whole thing of you keep it under your berry, and upset a few people. So look, I went for it. I was successful, and they gave me a ridiculously tight haircut, and my kind of argument was I need to have some reason for this haircut, so being a soldier was one of those. But look, I was very lucky I got in, and I've had 27 fantastic years in the organisation.
And did you show up on day one with the long hair?
I cut it. Okay. I cut it shorter.
Okay.
Shorter, and it's like something you see in the movies. They genuinely had a guy waiting, and he shaved the head, and it looked ridiculous. It wasn't trendy then. It has since become trendy to have that haircut. But I turned up with what I thought was short hair, bearing in mind that hair down to here, so having this bit of a flop, and it looked ridiculous. I thought I was cool at the time, but looking back at photographs, my wife, who was my girlfriend then, looks at me and goes, "You looked absolutely ridiculous with a pink bobbin in your hair." But I was into my Smiths and my alternative music and thought that was the scene.
Yeah, I remember showing up on I think day one and going into the barbers, and there was a couple of lads ahead of me or whatever. And he says, what do you want? This guy had a mullet, I think it was. And he goes, what do you want? He goes, 2 on the sides, one straight through the middle.
There's no fade or anything like that they have now.
No messing around. The hair was gone. Grand. And then, so you're in now. Do you remember crew training? You had the old green uniform, did you? Or
Oh
did you
God,
have
the
to
old
get
green
that
uniform with the old pattern webbing that we used to wear. The old uniform. Funny enough, I preferred the old combats over the DPMs. I actually thought they fit better because you used to tuck in the shirt, now they wear it out.
Yeah.
But I remember crew training. I trained in Gormanstown, joined the 11th of April in 1994. I remember it very well. I remember walking in the gates and the massive experience, life change that happened almost immediately. But look, I it was extremely hard, but I loved it. I really loved it, and made friends there and bonds there that lasted till today.
You tried Gormanstown, was it? You tried
Gormanstown, yeah.
And how many? Do you remember like how many started with you and how many finished?
I think there was 3 platoons, about 110, maybe in and around 110. Right. There was the attrition rate was reasonably high. A good few, of course, did pull out through varying reasons, injury, it just wasn't for them, or whatever the case is. But a good cohort completed the training. I'd say I couldn't be sure, maybe 70-80% probably finished it.
Oh, that's not bad then.
No, it's not. I know times have changed and ideas have changed, but a lot of people then, they really joined because they really wanted to be part of it. It was an adventure. We were moving in, and we were kind of moving into that Celtic Tiger era, so a lot of people were going into the high paying jobs then, and they wanted the bonuses. But I think people then who joined really wanted to be part of the organisation. It wasn't simply that they wanted a job. There was opportunities there, and we all know there's been ups and downs in that market. But I think people who joined then, the people who joined with me, really want to be part of the organisation.
That's good. And then, would you have had like the Steyr or the FM back then?
Steyr.
Oh, okay,
Steyr. During my FCA days, we had the Gustav and the FM, but no, with the Steyr was fairly new. I suppose it was almost like space aged weapon at the time. So, but we trained on the Steyr. Yeah,
good hour level Steyr.
It still is, yes.
And then you would have had like the boots. You would have had to stay up all hours bulling the boots.
Stop, yeah. The tricks of the trade that you learn in recruit training, because it's relentless, isn't it? You go to bed very late after doing all your training and lectures throughout the day. Then of course you're polishing floors, you're getting your boots ready, you're learning the whole skills of spit shining and getting the creases in the uniform. And then we all developed. Then I think at one point we were at a stage where, because bed blocks then, we didn't get duvets, so you had to build a bed block. And that's an art form in itself. So I think what we used to do, we'd get the bed block made, you'd lay out your kid on the bed, and quite often you'd sleep on the floor because you wanted everything ready, so you're only getting maybe 5 hours sleep if you're lucky, so you're trying to get the maximum sleep so you'd have stuff ready. I'm not saying we did that every night, but when you do it as a kid inspection, you tended to have that done.
Yeah, sure, it was done. And then, so is there any like highlights from training for yourself?
Highlights from training, we did I can't remember what exactly it was. We did a couple of charity events. A lot of recruit platoons do it, but I remember running from Gormanstown up to Drogheda. I think we did it there and back, and it was for but that was before we'd done the whole exercise phase. So that was that kind of running in block and the singing the songs and the stuff we'd all seen. We watched all the movies and all the Americans singing the songs, marching. So I loved the level of fitness it got you to, because it's unparalleled, and to be honest, I've never been able to attain it since.
I don't think I've ever been as fit myself.
No.
But then you would have spent much time in the sea in Gormanstown, would you?
Oh yeah, the sea. That was the downside, obviously, because Kevin Thornton, fantastic man, but didn't particularly love him at the time when he was running us around. But Kevin Thornton was the guy who used to do a lot of our PTs and in the sand and running around the airfield in Gormanstown, and we did. And then of course, what's the point in having a lot of water if you can't throw 30 or 40 lads and ladies into it? So we spent a lot of time there as well.
It's definitely like a harsh place to train.
It's a great training environment, but it's harsh because they're training you for what potentially you might be, situations you might be in. So it has to be harsh. It has to be robust. It's not for everybody, and that's absolutely fine. But I do think there's an element of breaking you down and building you up. And when done right, it's absolutely the right way to do it. I know there's people argue about certain situations where people do it wrong, but I think in general you do have to break people down and build them up, and it builds not only your fitness, it builds your character, your integrity, and I think not only does that assist you in the defence force, it helps you in life.
Yeah, definitely, and builds cohesion as
well. Yeah, of course.
And so you're in training 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, was it?
I think the initial training is God, I can't even remember now. It's because you do your initial recruit training
and then
then 2 to 3 star. We went up to Monaghan, where I was assigned 29 Battalion, and I did that phase of the training up there. But it's almost continuous, because you literally go from one to the dealer. You think it's going to be that phase is going to be easier, and you realise it's actually not. It's exactly the same.
And then, alright, so you're out training. How many years were you in then before you joined the military police?
So I went up to Monaghan in 94 after I finished my initial training, and then in 1997 I was accepted as a probationer on the military police course, and that was in the Curragh, and so from 1997 then I became an NCO in the military police, and immediately actually I had served overseas when I was in the infantry in Lebanon in the 78 Infantry Battalion. And then immediately after probationers training, I went to Bosnia as a young MP probationer.
What's the process of, like, I know there's different promotional routes someone can go down. What's the avenue, I suppose, for an MP? Like, what's involved in becoming an MP?
Okay, well, an MP, the MP probationers course, to set out, it's quite academic in this, because of course you have to learn a lot about law, because you need to know about the different legal acts, about the Defence Act. You need to understand about crime, how to process a crime scene, how to interview, but also you still have to do a lot of the military elements. There's a tactical phase, because you have a field element, of course, when you do tactical training, because when the military go on any large scale exercises, the military police are involved in movements, they're involved in setting up tactical command posts. So it will be different than a typical NCO course, although I think they've brought more of that into the newer phases of it. In fact, I think a lot of guys have to do almost the infantry phase before they go into that, but certainly in my day it was more academic, more classroom based.
And I think once you're an MP, then you wear the red beret, is it?
You wear the red beret, and then you wear the peak cap with the red band around it. So they only came in, I think, not many years before I became an MP. The red berets came in. Prior to that, it was the standard black beret. But internationally, a lot of international police and military police forces would red beret. So it was an obvious transition.
And what kind of courses then, once you're qualified as an MP and promoted then to the rank of corporal, I think it was?
Initially as corporal, yes, exactly. So there's a lot of courses open to the military police. Primarily a lot of the courses you do, because I spent a lot of my time in the investigation section. I was a crime reader, so I was kind of responsible for, I suppose, collating reports and evidence for eventual forward to the relevant authorities. And so I would have done an investigation course, and an investigation course is what qualifies you to be, I suppose, with the police equivalent of being a detective. So you kind of wear your civilian clothes, you deal with more I suppose more high-end crime, plus you learn at a higher level how to properly process a crime scene. You learn how again, higher level interview techniques. So you learn the full process of an investigation, the collection of evidence, the interviewing, and of course how to submit a report again to higher authority to make final decisions on whether to move forward, prosecute, whatever it is decided.
That was quite an interesting job.
It was actually interesting. The investigation course is fantastic, and the instructors in the Curragh, they're next to none. A lot of it is in conjunction with Gardaí, and I know guys who go on and do the SOCO, look at the CSI type course, do it directly with the An Garda Síochána, but we'd have Gardaí coming in to assist in certain lectures. The drugs course I would have had a large involvement with An Garda Síochána on that. Then we do photography. So a lot of these things lead into the overall role of an investigator. So you need photography, you need to understand drugs, and how to investigate drugs, and of course then you need to understand all about crime scenes, processing, interviewing. And so it's a process. So it's a number of courses you'll have to do over a period of time. And then there's a lot of other courses within the MPs or any, you have the administrative courses that you would do in the army. And of course, most of us, as well as working in our particular operational units, will spend time in offices. We spend a lot of time. It's not something we think we would do, but we all end up becoming office admins, office managers as well over a time.
Yeah, it's good that way. And then, so you're in the MPs doing the investigation course. How long you moved into yours then? You're there for a while?
Yeah, so I in 2002 2005, I think it was, I was approached and asked would I be interested. I had done a bit of kind of relief work in the Irish. In the Irish, just to explain, in the Irish you have the senior aide de camp, who's a full colonel.
Yeah.
Then you have 2 commandants and a captain, who are the other officer aide de camps, but all aide de camps. And then you have 2 NCOs, you have a sergeant and a corporal. Yeah. So I was approached, the corporal that was there at the time was retiring. And I was approached and asked would I be interested, and I was. It was, I'd been there on and off, and it was a fantastic place to be. So I started in the Irish in 2005 as the NCO corporal. However, I'd completed my standard course prior to entering the Irish. So 2 years later, I was promoted to sergeant. Okay. The initial plan was for me to return to the MPs, but it was the powers that be, and obviously with consultation myself, it was eventually decided that I would stay in the Irish. Okay. The plan was to stay there for 3 to 5 years, and I was there for 17 years.
Yeah, jeez. So when you're in the Irish, right? So like, what is your actual job as like an aide de camp?
Okay, so there's I suppose the aide de camp is a military advisor to the president, and certainly the colonel and the senior officers would handle that more so than the NCOs. But the NCO still has to be in a position to directly brief the president, which is the case. Yeah. You're given a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of trust in you there. And the relationship between the officers and the NCO is. I'm not saying it's different than the barrack environment, but because of the small nature of the team, it's more. I suppose it's more intimate. So we develop very strong relationships, strong bonds. In fact, strong friendships, regardless of ranks in the Irish, and we rely on each other very heavily. So a lot of my role would have been, it's very front of house PR. So we're dealing directly with the public. So when the president would have people in, he'd often turn around and say, "John, do you mind? Would you mind giving the group a tour around the house?" So you learn, have to give a historical tour, which is actually fascinating. It's a fascinating place, a fascinating history, and I really enjoyed engaging with people one-to-one. It was, having a bit of banter, having a bit of laugh, and you'll always find a few characters in every group. And also then there's the MC element of it, if you want to say. So the NCOs would do a lot of the MCing of the different events. Okay. There are times they get professional MCs in, but I suppose we're cheaper, so we were used to it for a bit. But we would do a lot of the announcements. So when the president getting announced into the room, we would do it. Yeah. And some of the high profile events, I know now King Charles, of course, Prince Charles came over a few years ago. I remember I was doing the announcements, and interestingly, someone showed me, it was an article about it in the Times, and the journalist described the person doing the announcement as the man with a DJ sounding mid-Atlantic accent. I didn't have a clue what mid-Atlantic was until I looked it up, and I found out, okay, I'm putting on a fake voice, basically, But I suppose you do that, the Irish voice comes out on you. But look, I enjoyed it. It was incredible for my confidence. I'm not going to say I was the most confident guy going into it, but it builds your confidence. You're standing there, you're there with world leaders. So in the Irish, I got to meet world leaders and history makers. I've been lucky, and I'm kind of name dropping, but it is. I got to meet.
Who's the most famous person?
Well, I've shook hands with President Obama. I've met President Biden. He wasn't president then, but I met President Biden, the Pope, the Queen. Any world leader that's come, they tend to go to the Irish, and the NCOs will be a strong part of that. And I was very lucky. I got to see people that I say people that have created history, have formed history, and it's eye-opening to see them in some ways, especially when the cameras are off and you see them as normal people. Because quite often when you're in a room with these people and they're talking to you, they're just talking to you one-to-one. And I remember people were asking me, there's a bit of controversy when the Queen was coming to visit, and what was she like? And I said, she was actually lovely. She was very polite. She acknowledged everybody, and I was brought up with the simple, have manners and treat people with respect. Yeah. And the Queen and many others I met just simple manners, and you're just another person, and they just speak to you like another person. Yeah. So it's great kind of eye opener when some of these people that you've seen over the years on telly, and these, how would you describe them? They're just a character, they're big figures, but when you actually get to speak to them, they're just people. They're big jobs, but they're just people. So that was a key element of it. And obviously we'd work closely with Garda Síochána in relation to the security. The Gardaí are responsible for the security of the president, but of course we work in very closely with them. So we have a very strong relationship with Garda Síochána, both the uniform service and the special detective unit, who will be responsible for the protection of the president.
Well, you're in the Oris then. Do you ever have a cup of tea with the president? You ever have on a first name basis?
No, never on a first name basis, and that's simply something I would myself, regardless of what anyone would say, that I would insist on, because the president's a symbol. It doesn't matter who's in the chair. The president is a symbol. It's enshrined in our constitution. So you should give. It's similar to your own organisation. It doesn't matter whether you like the person has a particular rank. You should respect the rank. So I very much respect the president. I've been very lucky to work with both President Mary McAleese and President Higgins. I have to say, personally, I think fantastic presidents. Both of them treated me personally with great respect. You're saying having tea. I did actually have tea with both of them. Before I got married in 2011, President McAleese invited my now wife and our daughter in, and we sat down and had tea with the president. And President Higgins, just after I retired, hosted lunch for me at the Oris, which was an incredible honour.
Brilliant.
And we didn't sit down and have tea and coffee and crumpets on a daily basis.
You wouldn't have lunch for the
but normally we're the guy that's ushering people around who are in to see the president. But I was very lucky, and I think both of them served this nation incredibly well. They have both very different people, very different agendas, and obviously I finished up with President Higgins, and President Higgins is still serving, and I have great respect for him. I have great respect for the work he does in President, not just here, and obviously he has great compassion for the issues here and obviously around the world.
I think he's actually a brilliant president. He represents Ireland really well.
He does. He does. He's been upstaged too many times by the dogs, but everyone loves the dogs. Sadly, poor Broad passed away recently. He was fantastic, great character. But no, he is. He's done the nation proud. A lot of people questioning, are you too old to do anything? And I think he's proved you never are. I think his academic mind is incredible, but he's got a great personality, great sense of humour as well. I always feared, when I was going to be working with someone that had such a great academic mind, that I wouldn't be able to, converse with him. But he talks to everyone as, on a level. In fact, one of the most fascinating things I seen was early in his presidency, a group of students came in, and they were in awe of him. He had been a lecturer, of course. Just listening to him talk passionately about the issues that he was passionate about, it was just fascinating to watch that engagement. And I have to say, it was humbling. Yeah, brilliant.
And then, so after, during your time at yours, then that would have been the time when you were in college then in Carlow myself.
Yeah. So I suppose
you're thinking of an exit plan?
It was exactly what I was. I came to a point when I hit 40. This is where you're supposed to say, no, you're not 40. No, he's not. Yes, not yet. But when I hit 40 10 years ago, but when I hit 40, I kind of made the decision then that I needed to start planning. I think the biggest mistake you can make is assume that it's just going to happen for you. I think you do need to plan. Start thinking of what you've done and how that'll benefit you when you get out of the organisation. So I made a decision to start planning, and I had been talking to somebody who had done one of the higher diplomas in IT Carlow, and I seen there was one upcoming, and it was in business management. So I put my name forward. I was lucky enough to be accepted. And that was my first kind of inroad to that kind of academic world, because in the military you're training all the time, but it's very different. You're in that whole military environment, and it's ingrained into you, because we're always training, regardless of you doing a course. Military training is continuous.
Constant learning.
We talk now about lifelong learning. In the military, that's exactly what you're doing all the time. But so I was nervous going into it. I didn't know if I was going to be very academic. I wasn't particularly good in school, and through no fault of any teachers, I just didn't put the effort in. As unfortunately a lot of us when we're young and immature do. So I kind of fell into that academic role. I enjoyed it. It was difficult. I enjoyed it. We were lucky enough that I suppose our class, while it was entirely run by civilians and entirely tutored by civilians, we were lucky that we were all military. So we had that kind of bonds that the military have, and that kind of barrack room bond that we could bring into the classroom.
Yeah, definitely.
So after that, after I finished in IT Carlow, I did better than I had expected myself.
Yeah, brilliant.
And then I decided that I wanted to maybe look even further again.
Okay.
So I looked at different programs, and then I came across a master's degree in digital marketing in DCU.
Okay.
And it was an applied one, so it wasn't purely academic based. It wasn't purely do a test and pass. So it was actually based on projects you did, and obviously a lot of academic elements, and you have final projects. But I decided I would go for that. I had to do an interview with the lead professor, Theo Lynn, and I was successful. In fact, he told me at the time, he says, "You're the first military guy to go for this course." So
really?
he says, "I'm kind of taking a chance on you," but it's interesting. He actually thought, that's a challenge. He's someone from a very different background, so it's really kind of gone totally left of field from what the normal transition would be. So so I did. It was a 2-year program. It was extremely challenging, of course. I think over 2 years, and maybe Christmas Day is the only day you weren't doing something related to it. But you have to be committed. And even if you recall in Carlow, the work we had to put in, and it was extreme. But I think the work ethic of the military is something that we have. It's something that's built into us.
Definitely.
We relish challenges. We genuinely relish challenges. And when you take on any challenge, you give it 100%. There's one thing I always, and something even my own father used to say, but I think I learned a lot from the military, is regardless of what role you do, you should do it 100%.
Yeah.
If you don't think you're getting the correct compensation for it, well, that's up for you to fight for that. But it doesn't matter. Once you agree to do something, you should do it 100%. So I always took that that mindset into the education side of it. So did the masters in DCU. I loved it. I found it very challenging, but I did love it. Wasn't upset when it was over, just to get that bit of freedom back. And so it was. So I did those, and it's at a point then that it's use it or lose it. It was a technical skill, so I had to start using it. I was lucky enough that I was doing I was doing part-time work with IT.ie, and I can talk about that actually a bit more. But I was doing a little bit of work with them and helping Eamon to grow the company a little. And in fairness, it was actually Eamon who had actually suggested the digital marketing side for me. So I went on, I did it, and shortly after I'd finished, I was looking at what opportunities were out there for me, and Eamon came and I suppose gave me an offer I couldn't refuse. So and I was greatly appreciative of it. So I was lucky in many that I didn't have to go exploring it, but I had been doing the groundwork. I knew there was a lot of opportunity out there. The challenge for me was I was older than a lot of people that were doing it. In fact, when I was in college, I was easily double the age of anyone else in the class.
Did you have to go during the day, or was it an even course, or was it self-study?
It was a mixture. It was a mixture. It was kind of 2 days a week. But with the masters, it's fairly self-directed. So you get instruction, but you're supposed to have a level that you can self-direct. And I was very lucky because my superiors in the RS, within the military as a whole, but in the RS where I was, were very obliging to me and gave me a lot of support, both with Carlow IT and in DCU. So I was given that flexibility and the support to allow me to do, and I think that's very important. And I think largely within the organisation, the military, I think most cases the guys are given the support to pursue other academic.
Definitely. Like even myself, like my first degree, I was in DBS 3 nights a week, and had to write a letter or whatever, explain what I wanted to do. And everyone spurred me on. I got didn't get put on duties those 3 nights, and pay back obviously with a Saturday duty 3 times.
They'll always pay you back. They'll always pay you back.
But there's definitely compromise with the external education, and it wasn't why are you doing that degree or whatever. Everyone was kind of rooting for you to get it done, which is brilliant. You wouldn't really get that outside.
No, you don't, and I agree with you. I think I can't talk about how the organisation was many years ago, and it was a different organisation. But I think the organisation of today, while it's a 2-tier system of the commissioned and non-commissioned, I think there's a great blend there, and I think there's a lot of support. I think commissioned officers, for instance, don't feel threatened by non-commissioned officers pursuing education. No. And I'm not saying it's true, but I remember arguments in the past where people would say that there was that threat there. I don't think so. I think people generally are intelligent. People in the military are intelligent, because you wouldn't survive without a level of intelligence. So it makes sense for them to pursue and it doesn't have to be an academic degree, just further training. You should continually train, regardless of what it is. I mean, I don't think it has to be, a degree. Well, it'll certainly help you, and I think sometimes maybe too much onus on degrees rather than practical skills as well.
I think like the army itself though is actually probably way more academic than people think itself. Like even like there's a lot of classroom based learning, and it's even though it's recruit training, there might be a bit of roaring and shouting or whatever like during the day when you're in training initially, but it is very classroom based and classroom led. And
that's what I think gives us an advantage when we go into these courses. I genuinely thought I was at a massive disadvantage going in to do, it's particularly the DCU with the young students.
Yeah.
And I remember one thing actually, the professor said, he was talking to the class and he says, he used to always use me for an example simply because I was similar age to him. And he said, see John there, he jumps to conclusions. And I was like, I said, what have I done? And he said, no, let me explain. He says he can, because he's had experiences in the army and in life that you haven't.
Yeah.
So he can go from step 1 to step 5, but you can't. You need to do step 2, 3, 4 and 5. But through his experiences, through my army life, we'd done those steps.
Yeah.
So we were able to. So we're okay in the end. I thought it was a dig at me, but it made sense, and I think that's where a lot of guys in the military, the training we've done, that continuous, and it is academic training that we do in the military. It equips you perfectly well, and so you will go in. And I was petrified, but very quickly I realised I'm on par with these guys. Yeah. I'm not saying I was better than them. Yeah. Maybe in some cases I was, in some cases I wasn't. But I was easily able to keep up with the young people who were, I suppose, living in the digital world that I necessarily didn't grow up in.
Yeah, but and I remember that you always had an interest though in the digital marketing side of things, even from when you were in Carlow, did you?
I was a bit of a tech geek. I always enjoyed, that tech side of it. And as I said many years ago, even as a teenager, early adult, I worked for the Finglas Forum and the journalism. So content is something I was interested. So digital marketing is very much content creation. It's there's obviously the technical side of it, but at the end, a lot of it is storytelling. It's storytelling. It's storytelling around the brand, around a situation with cybersecurity being the big one at the moment. But it is storytelling. It's creating content, and it's delivering a message. So I enjoy the creative side of it, and so I think that's something I always had an interest in, and I probably just needed maybe a little bit of push, which I got from Eamon at the time, to move in that direction. Yeah,
and so you left then shortly after you finished the masters, did you?
I finished the masters. Was it 19 or 20? But I left about 12 months later. I gave my commanding officer about 5 months notice, because we had to obviously go on the search for and find a replacement for me in the RS. So I gave them I think ample time to do that, and then for me to train in someone to replace me. So I didn't just jump. It's not an easy decision. It turns out the transition was easier than expected, but it's when your whole adult life is spent, in my case, in the military. It's not an easy decision. I loved the military. I don't have a negative word to say about it. But it was time. It was, and plus it was also time to give someone else a chance to take on the role that I was so lucky to have for so many years.
Yeah, definitely. Because 27 years in total, it's a long time to be.
It's a long time. Yeah. You don't have to rub it in.
You could have retired after 21.
I could have. I'm up to lucky we get the pension. I could have retired after 21, but I wasn't ready, and it would have been a mistake. I think you go when you're ready, but you need to prepare. No matter what you do or what you want to do, you should prepare. I've seen people leave and been instantly regretting it, because they'd had a bad day or they'd had a falling out with this person or the other. It's a massive decision, but I will say is once you prepare yourself and once you make the decision, it's the transition is very, very easy. And there's a lot to be said for not working weekends and nights as well. I have to say.
There sure is. And that was my next question then. So how did you find the whole transition then from, let's say, soldier then to civilian?
I may have been a little bit luckier because the RS is a very civilianised, if even that's a word, organisation. It's run by it's the civil service kind of manage the house, then you have the OPW who manage all the facilities. So I worked with civilians for a lot of my career, and then with the Gardaí as well. So going into the civilian world, I didn't find it difficult. However, I always separated my life. You talk now about the work-life balance. Most of my neighbours would never know I was in the military because I didn't come home in uniform. I remember in my days in the FCA, you'd travel on the bus in uniform so everyone would see you. That's when you're young. So my work life and my home life are two very different things. When I wasn't in the army, well, you're always a soldier. I was a civilian. I had a civilian mindset. Yeah. So when it came time to leave, I found the transition easy. I'm not going to say it is for everybody, but I was lucky. I found it quite easy. But then again, I was lucky in that I had that role to go into.
Yeah.
And as a role I was already doing, so I was very much lucky. So I'd done my groundwork, I'd done my preparation, and I was ready to go.
You're ready to go, yeah. And it's important to have that exit plan now as well, like, and not just like a couple of months in advance, like 2 or 3 years.
Oh no, it's not a month. I know a lot of other military organisations have kind of a 12-month strategy for you to exit. We don't, but to be fair, we're a very small organisation.
Yeah.
But it's at least, I would think, a 12-month kind of process, not for the military to get you ready to leave, but for you to get yourself ready to leave.
Yeah.
And that could be over years. I'm a firm believer that the day you join the army, you should always be thinking of the exit. I'm not saying you want to leave, but it's an eventuality that's going to come. And in all likelihood, you'll still be a young man or woman when you leave. So you should always be thinking of that next phase of your life from early on. And to use the army, and I don't mean that in a negative way, the army will teach you skills to their benefit, and as they should, but they're also teaching you skills that you can take outside, and you should start understanding them and maybe translating them into that civilian world.
Yeah, it's hard. It can sometimes be hard for soldiers to. Sorry, I jumped.
You're right. I jumped as well. 2 ex-soldiers have jumped in a window closed. That's not good.
That's
is
a
it?
civilian coming out.
Yeah, we're back in the lab. It's fine.
That's a lot. That's a part, like, I suppose, where soldiers struggle.
Yeah.
Translating what they've done in the military into civilian kind of wording, essentially.
Yes, and to be fair, Conor, you're more the expert on this. Obviously, this is your area, but soldiers don't. Yeah, we don't. I remember talking to the head of the personal support services, absolute gentleman, and I remember he was talking about they were looking at reimagining how these pre-retirement courses, because the old ones weren't particularly great. I'd never done one, but a lot of guys did, and they got great value out of them. So one of the things that they talked about was when he got Dublin Business School in, I think it was Dublin Business School came in, and he said he felt that they didn't think soldiers had a lot of transferable skills.
Okay.
But once they interviewed a number of soldiers, he says they were in awe of it, and then they actually came to the conclusions that soldiers don't know they have the transferable skills, but they actually do.
Yeah.
Like soldiers are trained in human resources. Soldiers, like the military admins itself, we have cybersecurity experts, IT technicians. Most of us are trained at a fairly high level of IT.
Yeah.
We have people who work in office admin, office managers. We're designed as team players.
Yeah.
We're also designed as team leaders. But sometimes people always compare, we use leadership a lot, but actually more importantly, it's management, because most of what we do in, say an NCO or a young officer is management. Now, when you go into an operational role, you transition to leader, and that's actually very important that you can actually have them. But I think people sometimes talk too much about being a leader, and you don't realise in every organisation there might be only one leader, but you actually need a lot of good managers.
Yeah.
And that's actually something I think we learn. I think effective communications, we know how to keep it simple, keep it simple, stupid. Yeah. We know how to effectively communicate without full of waffle from a guy who's been waffling here for a long time, but that's just me. But no, to be fair, we do know how to effectively communicate. Yeah. We have a very strong work ethic. As I said, leadership, teamwork, management, time management is actually very, very important as well. We learn how to time, and we're flexible and adaptable, because unlike some of the larger military organisations, the Irish soldier has to do a lot of different roles.
Yeah.
So he has to be flexible, and also has to be very capable of adapting to new roles as well, which I think we're very good at.
Yeah, you can be picked up and thrown into deep
anything. And we tend to do very well at it.
But yeah, I think Irish soldiers as well, I think they're also trained to do 2 jobs ahead of the actual rank that they are as well. So
yes.
Corporate, probably trained to do the job of a sergeant and a CS.
Of course.
So you kind of step into those roles then as well if someone goes down. So it's good that way. And then now you've left the army.
Yes.
You're with IT.ie now as the marketing manager full time.
Yes. I'm in the big civilian world, but no, it's been fantastic, and I suppose around the time actually I went to Carlo IT, Eamon approached me and asked me would I be interested in maybe doing a little bit of work with him.
Yeah.
And at the time Eamon was in an office in Glasnevin Industrial Estate, Dublin Business Centre I think they call it, with himself, Margaret in accounts and 2 technicians.
Yeah.
And I was kind of coming in and maybe have some ideas about growth, possibly a bit of business development, but seemed to transition more into the marketing side of it. And he had a great vision for what he thought IT, in relation to managed services, IT support should be for companies. And of course, it was kind of in those days when technology was exploding. We all look at ChatGPTs and all, and this new kind of disruptive technology. But IT was now becoming an essential thing. So because Eamon's kind of philosophy was IT is almost like a utility.
Yeah.
The same way you can't like we couldn't operate here without the lights on. So we need electricity. You can't operate without business without IT.
Yeah.
It's just an essential utility, and almost you need to come to the point that you forget it's there. It's just something you use, and that's why you have companies like IT.ie that provide all of your managed IT and your technology solutions. So so I liked his idea of where he wanted his business to go. I was delighted when I got the opportunity to come on board. We're now a business with we've 30 employees. We manage over 250 clients, about 10,000 individual devices that we manage, and it's a great team. In some ways it reminds me of the military in the sense that you've got the emergency response element where guys are responding to critical issues for clients, but you've got the proactive. So it's about building a proactive IT solutions, like almost like a strategy that aligns with your business growth. So it's important that an IT company not only fixes the issues but also is proactive to hopefully prevent the issues from happening, but also to look at where your business wants to grow and use your technology to assist that growth, to empower that growth.
And I actually use IT.ie. One of the first point of calls when I was like starting my business, and Eamon very helpful as well. You think he helped me connect the domains to the emails and to setting up the website and make sure all the domains are linked. And then David then as well personally delivered the laptop to me and showed me how it all worked. But they've been great. David's been over a few times, obviously with new laptops and docking stations and things like that. So the guys have been pretty helpful. Pretty good response times too.
They're great, and on the customer service side of things, the guys are brilliant. They understand that when people ring with a problem, they're looking for a solution. So you just have to talk people through. Not everyone is technical. Some of us have different levels of technical expertise. But no, I have to say it's exciting. Obviously, we're moving in. You're looking at the area of cybersecurity, and everyone has the fear around that. Yeah. So what IT.ie do, they provide, I suppose, it's the full 360 of managed services. So including your IT support, all the other managed service, 365, cyber security. Funny enough, the likes of the interactive screens and all that become very popular in schools. Yeah. And so we have our growth plans, and it's going according to it. And I suppose a lot of people start seeing the value of IT during COVID. Almost overnight, people were panicking for remote working. And we had actually been doing work with clients in relation to helping them assist into that hybrid working environment. So we actually found it quite easy. We were doing it ourselves anyway. So that was always coming. But COVID kind of accelerated. They often talk about accelerating the digital transformation. But everyone was heading down that road. Yeah. But COVID got us there a little bit quicker as
well. You guys already had the blueprints. So.
And we had the blueprints. But look, we were set up to do it. It's been successful. We all see now with recruitment, everyone's probably looking for some element of hybrid. I wouldn't say remote, because I don't think full remote is the way forward. I do think the hybrid approach works. I know myself, I do a hybrid approach. And I find it can be very productive at home, but at times you still need to be in the office. I think the culture of engaging with people, the whole water cooler effect. Yeah. And I think anyone who's 100% remote, well, it may work for many people. I'm not saying it doesn't. Yeah. I personally like people, so I like to actually engage with people one-to-one as opposed to just on a Teams call or something.
Yeah, I think it's beneficial to be in the office as well, especially from a mental health point of view, to see people. Of course. I think if you're I know I was working at home when I first started out. And geez, it was hard, not seeing anybody 5 days a week. So I was like, we're getting an office straight away, and then we a few people in. But it's good. The hybrid thing is definitely works well. I think fully remote work it's more of a privilege than a requirement of someone's job. Personally, but the hybrid model is working pretty well. Like two days at home kind of thing, 3 days in the office.
Funny enough, it was actually COVID that kind of helped me make the decision to retire as well. Because of COVID, there was very little happening in the Ira, so I was kind of doing an element of remote working from home for office-based roles in the Irish. But I actually started doing a lot of the digital marketing. I've retired now, but I was doing digital marketing on the minister's time. But and I just kind of fell more into that role. So that disconnect actually. So it's interesting. I always wondered that if COVID didn't happen, would I have retired when I did? And I don't know. I was always heading in that direction. But just like it accelerated digital transformation, it certainly accelerated my time frame to retire.
And and digital marketing as a whole, right? As a career, let's say. Would you recommend it to someone maybe that's coming out of school to go into?
Oh, absolutely. I think digital marketing, and funny enough, it's one of my considerations when I went to do it was the whole idea of I could do it anywhere, anytime. Once I have a digital device. Do I recommend? Absolutely, I recommend it. I think a lot of young people, I think they're born for it. Yeah. Like I had to learn technology. They grow up with it. It's almost a language to them. But I love technology. I love digital marketing. There's many aspects of it. Like just the strategy. So it's all planning. It's strategy. It's all looking at growth. It's all. But then you have the practical element of it. You're doing the social media. Yeah, I think it's the range of skills. I think regardless whether you go into digital marketing, a lot of people then go on to brand marketing, or even funny enough can go into the sales and business development side of it. But it's a very creative skill set. From you might be building a website, doing social media. I do a lot of video production and editing. When I say that, it's quite template based. I'm not an editor, but you learn. I find now the likes of the Adobe suite. It's not something I did a course on, but you kind of get that interest, and it's continuous learning. And then content creation and storytelling. I think that's the biggest element of it.
Yeah.
I think it's really telling the story. So if you're working for a brand or you're consulting for a brand, you're telling their story, and that's key. So when I'm writing content for IT.ie, I'm telling the story of IT.ie and the people behind IT.ie. And I'm trying as much as possible not to be biased. Of course, there's always an element that will come into anything, but then again, I work for them, so I'm always going to be kind. But no, it is. It's very much it's storytelling. I couldn't draw a straight line, but I can be creative when it comes to that digital side of things.
It's brilliant. And then the Defence Forces then as a career. Would you recommend it for someone coming out of school, or let's say a school leaver even? Yes,
I think I do recommend it. I recommend it as a career. I'd be on the fence whether I'd say I'd recommend it as a lifelong career. I think it's the experiences you get are invaluable, absolutely invaluable. I think a young man or woman joining the Defence Forces, the bonds they will and the friendships they will make are lifelong. The skills they will learn are again lifelong and very transferable. The experiences they get when they're overseas and on exercises is something you just won't get anywhere else. So I do highly recommend it. But then you have to, I would say, do your few years and then make your decision. Is it a career for life, or are you going to use it for the next phase of your life? Yeah. But look, I can say. Of course, soldiers should be paid more. Of course, they should be paid more. There's absolutely no doubt about it. People undervalue the work that they do. Now, you'll often ask people, but what do the army really do? And in truth, you don't really want to see soldiers on the streets, but they're trained for situations. But I think where we really show our worth is overseas, and I think the reputation for the Irish Defence Forces overseas is unparalleled, and I think that stems from a lot of countries that are experiencing hardship, having an appreciation for the history of Ireland, and the struggles the Irish people have had. So there's a great affinity, great empathy and respect for us, and also I think that allows us to have an understanding and an empathy for the people we're there to hopefully improve the lives of. So yes, I 100% recommend it as a career, but I also think that you should always be, even if you're going to spend 20 or 30 years, always get yourself ready and use it to your advantage for your next stage of your life.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the Defence Force themselves, I think they're, because the profile of the veteran, let's say, it's becoming younger. Yeah. Not everybody's staying for the whole 21 years or 31 years to get the pension or whatever it is now. But They have some good courses in place. Like, so if you become corporal, I think you get like a level 6 or 7, and then you go on then to become a sergeant, you get the level 8, I think it is, and then and that's all done through Carlos.
That's actually
so
no. That's
definitely recognised.
That's actually a very good point. And I when I did my standard NCO course, you didn't get that.
Yeah.
You got what's called an equivalence. So actually, in order for me to enter IT Carlo, I had to get the equivalence from the registrar to say, you don't have the degree, but you have the equivalent of it, because we didn't do it through the steps.
Yeah.
Whereas now, exactly as you said, when you become a corporal, you get your level 6. And I think when you become a sergeant, it's a level 7, and then you go on as far as a higher degree of level 8. So they're equating that military lifelong learning to a high end degree, and I think that's something I think where we've gone leaps and bounds. I remember talking to an officer, Peter Ott, he's retired now, and he would have done a lot of work on that about that kind of non-officer tract in the army, about actually equating their skills to the academic world, and then once you have those academic skills, of course, you can translate them, of course, across to the civilian world.
Yeah, I don't know how true the story actually is, but I heard that it was an officer coming out of Tesco's or whatever, or one of the shopping centres, and he seen the old sergeant major sitting behind the CCTV cameras, and looked at him and says, what are you doing working as a security guard? Like, you used to manage hundreds of men. And he's like, well, this was the only job I was qualified for. So once I think people seeing that and had the respect they had for the old sergeant major, that things start to kind of move.
Yeah, there was an old kind of thinking that, you're in the army, the only thing you'd be good at is swinging the gate doing security. And by the way, there's nothing wrong if you go into security. There's many wonderful people working that. But the point is that people didn't think they had any other skills, that we work for a security agency, that's all we can do.
Yeah.
But that's changed. That's changed across the board. And thankfully that's changed across the board. Some of the old soldiers didn't unfortunately get to take advantage of that whole thinking, and many of them were left behind. And thankfully organisations like the ONE do a lot of work in helping a lot of those ex-soldiers and of course even recent retirees. But I do think I think that equating the skills to that academic level, I think it's invaluable for soldiers.
Yeah, definitely. And then swinging back then to the digital marketing, the ChatGPT. You use it a lot, right? It's quite topical at the moment.
ChatGPT, Primetime actually had a talk on it last night. It's quite interesting. Look, it's disruptive. There's a lot of talk about regulating it, and in fact, from the chap who invented it, he's talking about government should regulate it, and they should.
Yeah.
I'm actually. I'm not going to get too deep, but I'm reading a book by Professor Harari. He did Sapien, fantastic book, but he's talking about how mankind basically treats other animals. We see them as inferior, and he says because we have the higher intelligence. He says, so what happens when AI? Now, by the way, he wrote this book in 2016. He says, what happens when AI has a superior intelligence to man? Do we then get relegated? Now, like that's worst case scenario. In reality, I think AI it's happening. It's disruptive, and you can't stop innovation. No. Yeah, of course you should regulate it. But I think the important thing is, and you might want to talk because this is more your expertise in employment. But I think for someone like myself in marketing, it's not that I'll use it to replace anything, but I should augment it with AI.
Yeah.
I think if you don't use the tool, you'll be left behind. I don't think it's going to necessarily replace lots of jobs.
No.
It'll change them. And I think, like any technology, if you don't adapt to that technology, if you don't start finding ways of incorporating that into your processes, I think then you're in trouble. So for me, ChatGPT is a tool, just like any other tool I use.
Yeah, it is definitely a tool. It's not. I don't think it's replacing anybody anytime soon.
No.
In terms of the licensing of like the AI, I think it's the guy that owns OpenAI now. He's talking about regulating it because he has it up and running, so it'll probably become closed AI.
Close, yeah. Look, and people are going to monetize it. It's like anything else. It's like Google. You ask people what Google are. Google is, and people say it's a search engine. It's not. It's an advertising agency. That's what it is. We all use Google Ads, and we pay money for that. I think. His fear obviously is the problem with AI is they call it the black box. I think they call it, whereby we know what goes in and we know what comes out. So you put a prompt in and you see what comes out. We don't know what's really happening in the black box. So all of a sudden, this has massive amounts of data. Now, bear in mind, it's data that's user-generated data. So it's biased. And it's sometimes inaccurate. So you cannot take what comes from ChatGPT as fact. I'm not saying it's going to intentionally lie to you. It probably doesn't know it is, but it is biased. So don't. My fear is that people use it as their main form of communication.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't. We all know how to communicate. Use it to maybe help you formulate a better email or a better article or post. In fact, was it the Irish Times only last week published an article, and it turns out it was fake. It was generated by
the content detector. Yeah,
content detector. Look, it's absolutely a great tool. It'll disrupt many. It's disruptive. It's like the Industrial Revolution, this new AI revolution, if you want to call it that. And it's not going away. We may regulate it. But I don't think it can slow down. I think there was a time when we waited until things were ready before they released them, even with mobile phones. Now they're competing. So you've got ChatGPT, which is kind of backed by Microsoft. You've BART, which is Google and Facebook are looking at them. So it's almost an arms race. We do hope that these guys will regulate it, but then on the other side of it, even if it's regulated, not every nation is going to abide by that. Like, we all know what goes on in cyber warfare and information war, state sponsored. So just because here in Ireland we decide to regulate it, it doesn't mean that the guy across the water is doing the same thing. And that's the fear. It's very hard to come to that universal consensus about what we should allow it to do. And people will always use it for bad as much as we use it for good. And with the likes of deep fakes is a worry around elections, and using it. Influencers now are people. Influencers of the future are just going to be bots. In fact, there is one or two bots that are already actually massively followed influencers with avatars and all that. But the disinformation is the biggest fear I feel around the chatbot. I wouldn't be so fearful that it's going to take all of our jobs. I'm more fearful that it would, in some way change society and our way of thinking, because while we trust, there's a certain level of trust with, say, a journalist. I'm not saying all the time, but we generally trust the news that it's largely unbiased, not entirely. But now all of a sudden, with all this auto-generated content, and obviously you can just pretend to be somebody. Like we have, I work for Michael D. Higgins, and Michael D. Higgins, President Higgins, would release, statements on different issues. What's to stop an AI just releasing it under the name of Michael? And we all know with cybersecurity, it's very easy to infiltrate someone's email, or get man in the middle attack and just infiltrate a conversation. So we're just going to have to be that little bit more careful.
We're definitely at the tip of the iceberg with it.
Well, we're at zero. We're always talking with zero trust in cybersecurity, and it's going to be kind of the same, I think, with AI. You start with zero, and then you develop trust, and you just have to do your research. We just don't take anything at face value.
Especially not now. The way things are moving. But look, I think that more or less wraps it up. Pretty happy enough.
This was supposed to be a 5-minute call, wasn't it? 5-minute chat, and
we're at 58 minutes.
58 minutes.
It's the longest one so far.
I used to get in trouble in the RS. I used to have to give a tour. It's supposed to be 45 minutes, and 2.5 hours later, and the chef used to go, please stop. I have the food ready for these people. But look, I really have enjoyed chatting with you, Conor. It's great to see you doing well, and it's great to see your business. I'm lucky enough I didn't have to reach out to you for work, but if I upset Eamon and he gets rid of me, maybe I will be reaching out at some point. But look, no, it's great. I think what you're doing, I think the idea of the podcast, or talking to ex-members of the organisation, I think is fantastic. I think people are interested, not necessarily listen to me. By the way, this is a deep fake, I'm not here. But I think people actually are interested in knowing that the skills that the soldier learns and how they can transfer them to the civilian world. And like, for anyone who's ever considering looking at filling roles, I think the soldier is someone you should always look at, because they're already built for you. The army has done that. They've given them the work ethic. They've given them the skills to do almost any role that you have for them. You just have to give them a chance. That's all. A
chance and a bit of a creative license.
Absolutely.
Not micromanage some, I suppose.
No, we don't like the micromanagers, do we? We don't.
No, definitely not. No, I didn't do well with them when I left now. But we got around it and everyone learned. It takes a while for different organisations. It's completely different to when you hire someone, hiring like a normal person, like, or a regular civilian off the street. The way they need to be managed to the way a soldier, an ex-soldier coming into your organisation needs to be managed is completely different.
And they're also a benefit to your team. Because most companies are trying to build a team. They're trying to build a culture. And I think when you employ members of the Defence Forces, they can help you build that culture because they've come from an organisation that largely has a very positive culture, regardless of what you may read and different things. I think Defence Forces and the people in it are, have a good culture, and I think they have above their actual skills. I think they are great to have as part of your team.
Yeah.
Whether it be leading the team or part of the team, it's fantastic to have a member of Defence Forces. And I think in the US in particular, they see that they've done a lot of work on that, and they can see the value. There's companies who actively go out and look for, because they see the value, and they're not doing it because they're trying to hire veterans. They're doing it for their own means. They're like, if you hire someone, you're going to hire someone that you think is going to benefit your company.
Yeah.
So why not get someone that's already got the skills, and you're not waiting for them to finish the degree. Not taking away from anyone who's out there doing training. Yeah. But I do think a member of the Defence Force, regardless of what role they had, is a valuable asset to almost any company.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think, something that companies need to look at, especially because we have so many American multinationals in Ireland, is looking at the veteran program for the Irish troops. Or even the UK troops, because I know there's not too many companies that have different veteran programs.
No.
Compared to the US. If you look on the same website for a company that's based in Ireland, for a company, and the same company will have a US base, they'll have a veterans program on their US website, but not on their Irish.
That's very true. There's I think there's a couple of the companies I've seen. A couple of ex-army guys are working with some of the big tech companies, and in fairness, they're implementing. They're implementing these kind of veteran programs from within it, because obviously they're getting support from their American multinational, and they're doing a great deal of work in trying to encourage Irish veterans to join it. But I agree. I think the US, the big multinationals have those programs in place, but the Irish companies don't.
No.
And that's I think they're missing an opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. Another thing is that you when you hire an Irish vet, let's say, you're going to get them at a cheaper rate. To market rate, let's say, for the civilian. Now, that's also an issue then as well, because 2 or 3 years time, once they get that work experience in the civilian world under the belt, then they're on to the highest bidder, I suppose, once they get the experience under the belt. So you have to you do have to keep them engaged and kind of make sure that the rewards package is in line with the market then as well.
Absolutely. And you're talking about keeping them engaged. They've been in an organisation where they've been constantly engaged. Yeah. So that is very important, and they absolutely should be compensated appropriately. You're not looking for it's not cheap labour.
No.
You're taking a highly skilled person with anything from 5 to 30 years experience in a quite a high pressure environment.
Yeah.
And you're taking them in. They are an asset to you, and you should nurture it.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's definitely a tricky one now. But we'll see how this progresses right over the next I think we've got 10 people confirmed to come on that are all ex-army, and then we might get some companies on then as well to talk about
that would actually be interesting, getting the companies and to understand, because obviously in the military we understand our mindset, but it'd be interesting to understand what these companies, how they value it.
Yeah.
Because when, as I said to you that time, when Dublin's Business School came in, they initially expected not to value it, if that's the right way of saying it. I'm not saying that the people themselves. It's just they didn't understand, because they hadn't engaged with the military, and they were almost shocked by the level of skill that members of the Defence Forces have.
It's quite a close shop though as well, right? We're quite cloak and dagger, I suppose, when it comes to what happens inside the gates of a barracks or whatever. But
and again, that's also an asset. You hire someone. You want someone that you can trust. Yeah, we don't go. We tell our stories and we do all that, but we are trusted, because we're trusted with information and that we simply can't share. Obviously, I worked in the RS for many years. There's many things I would be trusted with, which I would never share, and I take pride in the fact that I wouldn't share that. But same with soldiers. We're given, I suppose, a level of security clearance, if you want to say, or knowledge that we don't share. So if you take someone into the corporate world, corporate espionage is a massive thing. So you want to take someone in that you can trust. And again, ex-members are someone that that's ingrained into them.
Yeah, definitely.
They're not going to throw you under the bus, because they're not built that way.
Yeah, it depends. But thanks very much for coming.
Not at all, my
pleasure. Thanks very much.
Not at all.